how to stay spiritual and how to stay sober, then please subscribe to our channel, Rehab for the Soul, and make sure you click the little bell next to the subscribe button so you will get notified when new videos and posts show up. Very simple, very easy. We would love to have you in this community. So, without further ado, this is Rehab for the Soul, session number 8, anger and violence. You know, I have to talk about all the hard things in life because it doesn't seem like anybody else out there wants to talk about it. So here we are, anger and violence. Let's get down to it. Why is this important to talk about? I kind of feel like anger gets a super bad rap in the world, and I don't think that it should. Anger is a very healthy response to things that are going on inside of you and outside of you. So what I want to do today is I want to identify what anger is. All right. I want to also identify what causes anger. You know, where does anger come from? Do you ever wonder that? Why do we get mad about things? You know, where does violence come from? Why do these things happen? So I'm going to tell you that. And I'm also going to explain to you how to handle your anger. All right. So we got my board here. I got some intensive stuff up here because I think you guys are ready for more. I think you're ready for some more in-depth things. But first, I just want to real briefly share with you. Right now, there's a ton of anger and violence going on in the world. And everybody's like, all worked up about it, and what are we going to do about this, and how did this happen, and, you know, be easy about things, guys. Like, calm the fuck down, okay? That's right, I said it. Calm the fuck down, stay in your lane, live your life, don't interfere with other people's lives, and just do you. It's the easiest thing I can tell you. It's the most effective thing I can tell you. Stay out of other people's business. Very simple. Simple does not always equal easy, but sometimes it is the solution that we are seeking for. But I don't believe in anger management. Don't believe in anger management. I don't believe that anger management works. It's ineffective, and if anything, it further stigmatizes anger. So what anger is very simple. Anger is an emotion. Anger is a feeling. And in order to understand where anger comes from, all right, we have to first understand our emotions as a whole. And that is something that society has avoided doing for, hundreds of thousands of years. You know, we are truly spiritual, emotional beings, and we tend to forget that. And when we forget that, shit goes bad. So I want you to start thinking of your emotions as being like a gas gauge on the car. And what does the gas gauge on the car do? The gas gauge on the car tells you, you know, how far you can keep driving before you have to stop and put more fuel in the vehicle, right? And so our gas gauge is very important. It's not something that you want to disregard. You want to watch your gas gauge and keep an eye on it. And if you're a really good, solid addict alcoholic, you're going to be able to tell me exactly how many miles to the gallon you have once your little gas gauge hits E. Because that's how you guys like to live. You like to live on E, running on empty. Which doesn't get you very far, and hopefully what I'm going to tell you today is going to prevent you from doing that. So anger is an emotion, it's a feeling. And our emotions and our feelings, we need to start thinking of them not in terms of positive or negative, good or bad, but just on a continuum. And what that means is we need to start thinking about them on a scale. All right? Just like your gas gauge, just think of the gas gauge. And on one end of the scale, we have complete despair, like the lowest that you can possibly feel. Despair, hopelessness, shame, fear, guilt, anxiety, depression, worry, all of those icky emotions and feelings that we think don't benefit us, even though they really do, those are all on this left side of the scale. All right? So the bottom lowest of the low is when you hit that hopelessness and complete despair. On the other end of the scale here, on the opposite, people always want to think that the emotion that we're seeking out the most is unconditional love, and it's really not. It's freedom. Okay, we want freedom. And what I mean by freedom isn't like physical freedom, but it's spiritual and emotional freedom. We want the freedom to be exactly who we are, our true authentic self, imperfections and all. We want the freedom to be who we really are and to be, unconditionally loved and accepted for that. And you think that this happens in the world, and you think that you get unconditional love from people, especially like your family. But the reality of it is that that's probably inaccurate. And people don't like when I say that. If you're really giving somebody unconditional love, you're not going to ask them to change or be any other way than they already are. So when family members lose their shit because, the addict alcoholic is using and they want them to stop using, that's a condition. All right. So if you stop using drugs and alcohol, then I don't have to worry about you at night, and I don't have to be afraid about what's going to happen, and I can feel better. So in other words, they want you to stop using drugs and alcohol so they can feel better. It's kind of selfish. And if you are family and loved ones of the addict alcoholic watching this, I really hate to break it down. It's a selfish fucking move. Because if you can't accept them as they are, that's not unconditional love. And the addict alcoholic knows that, and they want to please you, so they will go about altering their behavior or hiding what they're doing so they can still continue to receive that quote-unquote love and acceptance from you. But it's false, because they can't really be upfront in who they are. And by the way, guys, it's not the drugs and alcohol that kill people. It's the hiding and the lying. It's the hiding and the lying. It's the hiding and the lying. I'm going to say it again. The hiding and the lying and the dishonesty are what kills addicts and alcoholics. So if they can be upfront and be honest about, hey, yeah, I'm shooting dope. Now, I know you never really hear that. I get that. But if someone can be honest about what they're really using, they stand a far off better chance at getting back to health and sobriety and happiness, as opposed to the addict alcoholic that's out there using and hiding it, which is like 98% of people in active use. Alcoholics hide their liquor places all over the house. I'm sure that's no secret. Everybody wants to cover up what they're really doing out of fear of not being accepted and out of love. But that's unconditional love. I guess that topic is for another day, huh? Because we're here to talk about anger and rage. But I go off like this every now and then on my videos because I feel like you guys have to know these things. Because if I don't tell you, who else is going to tell you? So the ultimate emotion that we're seeking is that freedom, okay? And unconditional love, of course, is higher up on the scale as well. But if you'll notice on the right side, we have things like, excited, joyful, ease, contentment, unconditional love, happy, peaceful, hopeful, okay? Curious, interested. So the left side of the board represents when we're feeling out of spiritual alignment, and the right side of the board represents how we feel when we are in spiritual alignment. It's really that simple. And how do we know when we're in spiritual alignment? By the way that we feel. All right? By the way that we feel. So if you're feeling some of these things down here on the left side of the board, you are out of spiritual alignment, or you are in a state of dis-ease. Dis-ease. And if you are feeling some of these things up here, you're in a state of alignment. It's really that simple. So when we're talking about anger and rage, to understand, and violence, to understand what is anger, right? What that means, we have to know where anger roughly falls. Where does it fall on this emotional scale? All right. So anger definitely falls on the left side of the emotional scale, which is out of spiritual alignment. But in anger, I have like right here, as you probably can't see that, but my writing, right? Anger is right here. Anger and rage. Now, when we're talking about anger and rage, violence is not an emotion, Violence is a way you attempt to alleviate the anger and rage that you're feeling. It's a physical attempt to get rid of unwanted feelings. That's it. So to feel anger and rage is normal. It's a healthy emotional response to things. You should feel that way sometimes. It's not something you have to be ashamed or embarrassed about. But where things get dicey is when you don't handle that anger and rage, then violence tends to happen. You tend to put your hands on somebody, become, we're fighting a lot of wars now, so I'm trying to couch my words, but fuck it. You want to drop bombs in the name of God and shit like that, and you see all these suicidal bombers and mass murders, and don't buy into the hype, by the way, but that's a whole other thing. You see a lot of these violent acts, and people say, well, how does somebody do that? Well, very simple. They are not in spiritual alignment. That's it. There's two types of people in the world, guys. Forget what you know about culture, race, gender, and ethnicity. Those are physical constructs that don't really exist in the spiritual realm. So when we're talking about these things, there's only two types of people in the world. Yeah. They're either in spiritual alignment or they're out of spiritual alignment. That simple. Okay? So anger and rage is, down here. These are the emotions. It's important to understand what's behind these emotions, what's backing rage. There's always something backing rage. And what is down here is hopelessness, despair, fear, guilt, shame, depression, anxiety. I promise you, whenever you encounter somebody who's angry, they are struggling with these lower vibrating frequencies of emotion. All right? That's what's backing this. And so when people feel depressed and shame and despair and hopeless, they tend to feel powerless. All right? They tend to feel powerless. And so they start reaching, they want to feel better, right? They want to feel happy and peaceful and free. But when you're down at this end of the emotional scale, you don't have access to all these fun feeling emotions up here. You just don't. Why? Because it's too far of a jump. It's like traveling from Ohio to Florida. You're not going to immediately go boom, boom, and get there. You have to cross through some other states. All right? And when we talk about this being an emotional journey, that's exactly what this means. So anger is just one stop on the emotional journey from despair to freedom. That was really, really damn good, guys. What I just said there. I don't think I've ever said that clearly, but I'm going to say it again. Anger is just one stop on the emotional journey from despair to freedom. It doesn't mean you've gone off task. It doesn't mean anything's gone wrong. It doesn't mean that you're off your path. None of that. Now, people will make you feel that way because the kicker is people prefer you to be depressed and sad as opposed to angry because you're just easier to deal with that way. Pretty selfish, huh? Yeah, people prefer you to be sad and depressed as opposed to angry and rageful because it's just easier for them to handle you. But if you're at despair and you can't reach any emotions up here because it's too far of a jump, what's the next best thing? Oh yeah, anger and rage. Yeah, it's progress. It's moving you've found a way to move yourself up the emotional scale. One of the ways to treat somebody who is clinically depressed because they feel so down and out and powerless and hopeless is to have them kind of find something and reach for a feeling that or a thought that evokes that anger from them. Because in that anger, you're taking some of your power back. You're taking your power back because you're showing yourself, hey, I can get out of this depression and despair. I can get out of that and I can move myself up the emotional scale. Remember, that's the goal. We always want to move ourselves up the emotional scale. And even though you're not making the jump from here to here, you're making the jump from here to here, right? And in this jump, just this short little jump here, there's progress. That's progress. So when you go from despair to anger and rage, that's progress. Okay? That should be rewarded. That's good. But the problem where that happens is a lot of times people get to anger and rage, and instead of continuing to move forward, they don't know what to do because people shame them about their anger and rage, and they say, oh, you shouldn't be angry, you should forgive people. Anger is a sin. Rage is a sin. Anger is bad. Apologize. Make an amends. Guys, God, this world, you know, religion does this to us. Some support communities do this to us. I'm not going to name names here, but y'all kind of can know what I'm talking about. And not that those things are bad. I'm not condemning religion. I'm not condemning 12-step programs. But what I'm saying is they're not bad, but it's just not enough. It's not enough to keep you going, to fully understand just how worthy and powerful you are, and that's okay. You're allowed to be that today. All right? So society in general has given anger such a bad rap. Such a bad rap. You know, people say being angry is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. What the fuck? Like, no, not at all. Where the problem lies in anger and why it gets a bad rap is because people get stuck here. They get stuck in this cycle between anger and rage, back to depression, hopelessness, and despair. Then to anger and rage, back to depression, hopelessness, and despair. And they cycle, and they cycle, and they cycle, and they cycle, and they cycle. That's where the problem comes from. And then when they cycle and can't get out of this, they feel helpless, and therefore, when we feel like we can't control what's going on inside of us and how we feel, we want to then reach out and control what's going on around us. I'm going to say that again. When we feel like we can't control how we feel on the inside and everything feels out of control on the inside with our feelings and emotions, we then reach on the outside to try and control what's happening on the outside of us so we can attempt to feel better on the inside. Doesn't work that way, does it? Because it just never fully lasts. So whether that's reaching for drugs and alcohol to put in your body to numb out this rage, whether it's trying to control people and loved ones around you, whether it's trying to control society, whether it's you always want to try and control something in your environment that you can't control, and that's where these violent tendencies come from. So, and again, I'm not condoning violence, that's not what I'm saying here, but when you see somebody that's acting out in that way, you have to understand, it didn't just happen. Like, I mean, I've worked in rehab facilities with violent offenders, and I can promise you, I've worked with murderers, and I've heard more murder confessions than a Catholic priest. And not once did I ever look that person in the face and think, what a piece of shit. I just thought, oh, what a nice guy, like what a good person, because I can see what's behind it, and I can see the soul of the individual that's standing before me, and what they're dealing with, and they're packing this gun, you know, the gun of rage and anger is packed with fear, anxiety, shame, hopelessness, despair, depression, all guilt. You know, that's what the gun of anger is loaded with. But it doesn't have to be that way at all, because anger is definitely along the emotional path to freedom. We just can't stop there and unpack. So we got to start reaching for, even though we're not going to be able to find a joyful thought in a moment of rage, but we can find a better feeling thought that maybe we just start to feel frustrated, or maybe we start to feel overwhelmed. And which feels better, anger and rage or frustration? Frustration and irritation are higher on the emotional scale than anger and rage. So never do we ever make these jumps from here to here. We move and go through all of these emotions till we get to the top. And then once we get back there, we always cycle back and forth throughout the day. It's not like we get into spiritual alignment and stay there. It doesn't happen that way. We go in and out all day long, but as long as we are aware with where we stand, then we can make progress. Okay? Guys, I know this is a lot. It's like drinking out of a fire hydrant. I don't know what to tell you, but I got to get you all this information, because when you understand how this works, you can change your entire life. And that's the only life that you need to change. Nobody else's. And that's a good thing, because you can't change anybody else's life. That's it. Just you. All right? So, we identified what anger and rage is. We talked a little bit about violence. I told you where anger and rage comes from. Now it's like, how do we move out of it? How do you get out of that anger and rage? Well, this is going to sound a little nuts, but the way you get out of anger and rage is you change the subject that got you there in the first place. I know. It's a big letdown, isn't it? You guys are like, really? That's it? Really, that's it. You put down the rock and you find something to distract yourself. And you have to, this is where self-awareness comes in. You have to know where you are on the emotional scale. So, these people that are committing all these violent acts and shit like this, and we got all this war crap going on, it's just because there's a lot of people that are out of spiritual alignment. Turn the television off. What are you watching that shit for? Because if you're attracting violence into your life, then you are vibrating for sure at a lower frequency. And if you keep taking that in, it's because you're going to keep putting it out. And then you're going to keep attracting experiences and thoughts like that to you that are going to line up with where you're vibrating emotionally. So if you're on that scale, those are going to be the types of experiences you draw to yourself. But anger and rage does not, it's a very good emotion. It means you're on your path to freedom. If you want it to be, you just can't get stuck here. You can't habituate this, right? Because if you do, you're just going to get more of it. And everybody seems to do this. Everybody seems, I don't know why. It's just the human being thing. We get stuck in these emotions and vibrations and we don't know how to get out of them. And so hopefully this is making some sense. And then once, this is like the halfway mark, right? Do you ever get so flippin' angry at somebody and you're just so solidly like, oh, they've wronged you, you're never talking to them again? I think we've all been there. But then eventually after some time passes, you start doing other things, you distract yourself, you go to work, whatever, you watch something on TV, you listen to some music, and after that, you're not as angry. Or eventually you just kind of forget what it was they did wrong. Yeah, that's what you got to do. You got to distract yourself so you can move yourself up the emotional scale and feel better, which you have full control over that. And when we think that we don't have control over how we feel and we think other people are responsible for how we feel, that's when we're in some trouble, because we always are responsible for what's happening to us. We are creating our reality every step of the way. All the good things that happen in your life and all the quote-unquote negative things that happen in your life. You're responsible for all of it. Who fucked who? You fucked you. And that's a good thing, because if you fucked you, you can unfuck you. Point blank simple. So when somebody's angry, don't go up to them and say, calm down. I mean, when I'm angry and someone says to me, just calm down, I want to knock them out. No, don't you think if I could calm down, I would calm down? And calm down, being calm, that's on what side of the board, the left or the right? It's on the right side of the board. So when someone's got anger down here, they can't reach for that. That's too far of a jump. It's too far of a jump. You gotta vent it out, guys, and then find a way to keep moving up the scale. Little bits at a time, 1 mile marker at a time. 1 mile marker at a time. And that's it. And so if you know where you are on this emotional scale, you know when you got to pause and take a break and fill up your tank so you can feel better. You don't have to think of yourself as a bad person because you have this anger and depression and fear. Everybody feels that way at any given point in the day. You don't have to feel bad about that. That's like if your car, the gas gauge hits E, you don't throw the car to the side of the road and say, this car's worthless, I'm never driving again, I can't believe it ran out of gas. You just go take the car to the gas station, put gas in it, and move on with your life, right? Well, our emotional gas gauge shows us where we are. When we are on the left side of the board and we need to put more gas in the car, the emotional tank, we just pull over and top it off. And here's a kicker. This is a secret, don't tell anybody. But did you know that you don't have to wait for your car, for the E-light to come on to put gas in it? You can put gas in your car at any point in time. So is the emotional scale. Same thing. You can stop and you can ground yourself and recharge your spiritual tank at any point in time. You don't have to get all the way down to despair to fill it back up. Shit, you could stop when you're just feeling indifferent or irritable. You know, when you start to feel irritable and frustrated and overwhelmed, that's a really, really good place or indication that you need to stop what you're doing and you need to pause and you need to rethink what's going on. Okay? It doesn't have to get to this point. So be always tuned in. That's why it's important. Our emotions are always speaking to us. They are the GPS of the soul. They are telling us which way we're headed. And if we're going in a wrong direction, they tell us, route recalculating. Please proceed to the highlighted route. And all routes and all roads lead to joy, unconditional love, and freedom, because that is your birthright. All right, guys, I hope this made sense. No more shaming people that are angry. Anger and frustration is a good thing. And if you don't know how to handle them, send them my way, guys. Recovery Concepts and Consulting. Call for a session now. I do have a few slots left. Not that many, but a couple. So get on it, because this train is a-rolling. And you guys know what I say. It ain't perfect, but it's rock and roll.